Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Jan Darasz. Disputes over history continue to overshadow Polish-Ukrainian relations. Instead of unity in the face of common enemy, Russia, Warsaw and Kyiv have traded blows over extremely different views of the Volhynia massacre, which saw about 100,000 Polish civilians killed by Ukrainian nationalists during World War II. As the anniversary of those tragic events approaches, we take a look back at the root of the dispute with Jan Darasz, our history editor here at TVP World. Hello and welcome.
Hello, Janusz.
Right, so let's begin at the very beginning, as they say. The Volhynia massacre is not yet a household name in the West, like, say, the Holocaust. Everyone knows what the Holocaust was. So can you tell us, what was the Volhynia massacre? How did it come about? And what were its consequences?
It's a culmination in 1943 of the growth of Ukrainian nationalism on the eastern borderlands, former eastern borderlands of Poland. Large Polish population in these lands, and the Ukrainian plan, it was a concerted policy by the UPA, Ukrainian Insurgent Army, and its parent organisation, the OUN, the Organisation of Ukrainian Nationalists, to either kill, slaughter, or eradicate, chase out any vestige of Polish identity, of Poles, of their culture and of their traditions in the areas of the eastern borderlands, the Kresy of the Polish Second Republic.
And also some of the victims, apart from Poles, were the majority, there were also members of the Jewish community, members of other nationalities as well.
Yes, not just
relatively small numbers.
Yes, that's right. Poles were the main target because they constituted the main ethnic grouping in that area. And as you rightly say, the Jews were also targeted, but also Czechs, Slovaks, Hungarians, but in relation, in terms of the proportion, they're very small, but nonetheless present. Anything that wasn't Ukrainian was deemed to be anathema and had to be eradicated.
And the nationalists, they acted with extreme cruelty, right?
It was a concerted policy to when you're killing the Polish community, when you're liquidating it, to make it clear that there was to be no return in any post-war settlement within those areas. So it was prosecuted with an unbearable degree of savagery by the Ukrainians, but also got to bear in mind that these were farm implements. There were very few firearms used in these killings. The UPA and its aiders and abettors took whatever came to hand: hammers, scythes.
So unspeakable brutality there, right?
It was ghastly, yes.
So what is the legal qualification from our perspective today? There is a dispute concerning whether this, in fact, constituted genocide, right?
The problem with the word is that it operates on several levels. We have a UN legalized definition of what genocide is. There's an emotive description, and there's also it's used as a political label. It's something that I stay clear of by a mile and let the lawyers sort it out. But it's a problematic definition, certainly.
So there is no universal agreement as to this qualification, right?
No.
There is a difference between how Poland and in particular Polish parliament views it and how Ukrainians view it.
Yes, right? I mean, the Ukrainians have rejected the label that it was genocide, and Ukrainian historiographers have tended so far to kind of either push it under the carpet or not to mention it, or when they've mentioned it, it was an unfortunate incident. But you're right, the Polish
unfortunate incident with 100,000 casualties.
It's something that you can't hide.
So is there no agreement even as to the label of ethnic cleansing? Because this is something that appears to cover it in a way that's much less open to dispute today.
No, because these are two views of history which diverge. So as you say, the Polish view of history is ethnic cleansing with that bears the hallmarks of genocide. So that's the Polish parliamentary definition, which they undertook in 2019, I think. I may be wrong with it, but it was several years ago. The Ukrainians reject this because it would hit at the creation myth of the OUN and the UPA, which is located in western Ukraine, but it's spreading eastwards now, and it's the cult of Stepan Bandera and other leaders, and you can't really have this hagiography, this sainthood, besmirched by notions that they were mass murderers.
So that stems from the fact that in addition to what they did, they were also resistance fighters against the Soviet dominance, right? And this is why Ukraine nowadays continues to view them as heroes. At least some people do.
Yeah, so you're dead right. The main focus of as the Ukrainians see their activities of the UPA is against the Soviet occupation from the mid-1940s, 1945, to the mid-1950s. So that 10 year, they were fighting against the Soviet. Again, they saw it was a foreign occupation. So Soviets were one enemy, Poles were an earlier enemy.
Were there any casualties on the Ukrainian side? Because this is an argument that often appears that it was not only the Ukrainian nationalists who killed people in the area, including civilians.
Well,
was there anything that even remotely matched that degree of brutality in the number of casualties?
The Ukrainians would kind of try and symmetrize the if that's a word, the events, and say, well, the Polish underground also committed atrocities. True, but there's a causality involved in it. The Home Army, the Polish resistance, did retaliate against Ukrainian villages and performed atrocities there, but it wasn't in the scale that the Ukrainians had adopted in 1943. So it wasn't this idea that the Poles took their revenge on 100,000 Ukrainians. It was several thousand, yes, but not. Right. The scale was vastly different.
But why are we seeing this dispute erupt now, when Poland and Ukraine have so far been essentially fighting side by side, of course, not in the same capacity, but still on the same side of the barricade? On the other side, there is an aggressive Russia. That's essentially a country that is committing atrocities right here and right now. So one would have thought this is a situation whereby the present and the future must take precedence, but it did not. What were the root causes of this dispute reappearing with such intensity? Because it never disappeared, but right now it has essentially taken center stage in mutual relations.
Well, that's the problem. It never really disappeared. It was a kind of ticking time bomb that was going to go off in somebody's face at some point. And the root cause, or the initiation, was when President Zelensky named a special forces unit in the Ukrainian army after the heroes of the UPA. Now there are three letters which are designed to anger the Poles, and that's UPA, and they must have known about the repercussions that this would have in Poland.
So domestic politics, right? Was it only on the Ukrainian side, or was it also on the Polish side when we're talking about the response to this?
Well, you can always point out the domestic dimension to these particular events. On the Ukrainian side, he may have wanted to either cozy up to or placate nationalist elements in the army or the military establishment, and with a view to a future post-war election. So that could be that's one view of it. And the Polish, on the Polish side, you could always say, well, okay, you can always weaponize these tragedies to suit a particular anti-Ukrainian, in this case, anti-Ukrainian stance amongst the Polish nationalist right.
So, looking at recent polls, it appears that the more hardline stance, more one would say principled stance taken by the Polish president, was actually more popular of the two. The government was obviously trying to reduce tensions a bit, but now we also had a meeting between Polish president and his Ukrainian counterpart, between Karol Nawrocki and Volodymyr Zelensky during the NATO summit. Can you see any signs that this dispute might be de-escalating at least slightly?
It's been halted. You could see from the body language of the two presidents that it was still tense, but they've not let it go further in terms of the rhetoric employed by both sides. Now that may be a short-term covering up of the problem. So I would say yes, that they may have halted the slide downwards in relations, but they haven't addressed the root problem, and chiefly on the Ukrainian side. Question of history.
Right. Speaking of history, there is also another tragic anniversary commemorated in Poland, the Jedwabne massacre. So that's again World War II. This time we're talking about the Holocaust. Can you tell us briefly about what happened there? And again, what lessons have been learned from the process of dealing with that tragic past?
Sure. In broad brush terms, it was a massacre that was allegedly done by Polish residents of Jedwabne against their Jewish co-residents of a little village or township in northeastern Poland. And this was in the interregnum before the Germans had invaded the Soviet Union. They hadn't established their presence in the area, and this was a window that the Poles used. Again, allegedly, was still very controversial episode, to massacre their Jewish compatriots for whatever reasons, personal, economic, anti-Semitic, and so that's the general picture. They used the interregnum. The Soviets had gone, the Germans hadn't arrived, and this was one of these horrific windows of opportunity that was presented, not just in Poland, but in all that area, Lithuania, Latvia, the Baltics. These massacres were carried out at this time, June 1941.
And again, small communities, sometimes neighbours killing neighbours.
Exactly, yes.
So perhaps that's one thing that these tragic events did have in common. Jan Darasz was our guest today here on the programme. Thank you very much for joining us.
Jan Darasz, great.
And I'm Jan Darasz. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.